the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Cabinet colleagues, Members of Parliament, I'm observing all protocols. Mr. Speaker, 54 members of this House have spoken in reply of His Excellency's most gracious speech. So please, Mr. Speaker, before I close the betting order for the day, allow me to tell you a story and also tell this story to my fellow parliamentarians. It's a story that's been shared by one of the most prolific storytelling presidents of the United States, President Ronald Reagan. He told the story of a businesswoman who would meet an elderly man every morning without fail. The man would be sitting selling pretzels in front of a building. Each morning she would drop a quarter without taking a pretzel. She did this religiously every morning for years. On a particular cold, misty morning, she dropped the usual 25 cents in front of the man, and to her surprise, the man reached out and grabbed her hand. She said to the man, "I'm sure you want to know why I've been so charitable to you, praying for the pretzels all these years and not taking one up to this day." The man looked up and said to the businesswoman, "No, madam, I just wanted to let you know that the pretzels now cost 35 cents. Mr. Speaker, I have listened carefully to the speeches of the opposition members, and I'm reminded of that pretzel seller, persistent, present where he sits in the corner, but not grateful. Ungrateful for the quality of democracy they now enjoy in these chambers. Democracy that allows them to sit in opposition, not silenced, not sidelined, but seated, while government repeatedly accommodates their request for bipartisan engagements, in committees, in the House, again and again. Let me ask them a question, a fair question, Mr. Speaker. Can they even imagine, even for a moment, if we choose to treat them now the way members like the Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Ngawaka, the Honourable Biman Prasad, were treated when they sat in opposition? They don't have to imagine that, Mr. Speaker. They are living the alternative now. They are living the proof that this government is different. Today, they operate in a much more receptive democracy. An absence of arrogance, a space where they criticize the Prime Minister openly, directly, personally, and persistently, as we've witnessed throughout the week. And he has absorbed all of it. Every word, every attack, every speech designed not to enlighten, but to provoke. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? The Prime Minister is still here. He's still here. Still focused, still leading, because leadership is not about responding to every critic. It is about staying steady for every Fijian. All we have heard from the opposition is about themselves, their complaints, their list, carefully curated of what they claim has not been done, what they have declared undoable, and what they assert was never prioritized in 3 years. 3 years. It's the same 3 years that we have paid cane farmers record-breaking payments per tonnage. Not promises, payments. In that same 3 years, we have stabilized the economy. We have regained regional and international respect. We have enhanced trade and development partnership. The Prime Minister's Ocean of Peace is a Pacific language and will soon become a language of the world. And yet, they remain adamant. 3 years is not enough for them, and never enough. They speak loudly about 15% VAT, very loudly, Mr. Speaker, as though they discovered the very concept of taxation yesterday. They do not acknowledge conveniently that the very government they once supported, the government they joined, introduced the exact same percentage between January of 2011 to December of 2015. 5 years of 15% VAT. And when it was reduced to 9%, it was done so with a color of deception, because they added 10% of ECAL and another 6% of STT. The result, Mr. Speaker, some items attracted up to 25% tax. But we did not hear them complain then, Mr. Speaker. We heard nothing, because they would have been fired and not here today. Like the men selling pretzels, their voice only rises when they have announced an increase. They appreciate nothing of the texture of democracy they now enjoy, the vibrancy of our parliamentary sessions, the bipartisan journey that only this coalition government has been able to forge and deliver to Fiji. They take the space, they take the microphone, but they refuse to take responsibility for their record. Mr. Speaker, the world is shifting beneath our feet. We have witnessed extraordinary global events. Trade alignments happening overnight, not over years. Alliances once assumed permanent, now under question. New blocs forming, old certainties fall away. In such a moment, a small nation can feel adrift. A small nation can be tempted to wait and see which way the wind blows. But Fiji is not here to wait. I rise to address this global current directly, and trade positionings, the alliance shifts, the restructuring of international architecture, and to integrate my observations with the most gracious speech delivered by His Excellency the President when he opened this Parliament. Because His Excellency spoke of resetting our nation, and let me be clear, resetting Fiji cannot happen in isolation from resetting our place in the world. The two are the same task. We must understand the rupture that is now underway globally. We must name it clearly, and we must act, not as passive observers of history, but as authors of our own future. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear, the world has changed forever. In the most recent of days and in the most recent of hours, we have witnessed great power rivalry on full display. Big powers have tested the world's rules-based order at cost to the entire globe. Middle powers see this clearly. They are under no illusion about what world of 2026 and beyond has in store. The question is not whether the old order will return. It will not. The question is whether middle powers will find their voices before the window closes. We must ask ourselves, Mr. Speaker, we must answer it honestly. What does a small island developing state do to cushion the impacts of these extraordinary global conflicts? Conflicts fought far from our shores, yet whose missiles land here in the form of high prices. What systems have we built to future-proof our citizens, to shield them from the inflation that crosses borders as easily as data? From the rising cost of shipping, from oil and energy price hikes that are decided in distant capitals, but paid for at every Fijian kitchen table. Because ultimately, Mr. Speaker, it is about what we put on the table, the price of food, the cost of feeding a family. If we cannot protect that, we cannot protect anything. In the recent World Economic Summit at Davos, I saw something instructive. Countries meet on the margins. Draft trade and economic support agreements are exchanged in corridors, not plenaries. New sciences were discussed, new frontiers, artificial intelligence, green energy, critical minerals, explored with the intensity of those who knew the race has already begun. Shipping ports, trade routes, new destinations identified, negotiators scurrying behind the photo ops of their leaders, knocking down critical details of bilateral and multilateral draft agreements. Why? Because they realize what too many still refuse to say aloud. The world that provided safety at the end of 2025 is not returning. That reality, Mr. Speaker, is the same for us here at home. Fiji we knew at the dusk of 2025 is not coming back. To look back is nostalgia, and nostalgia is no strategy. Looking back is something we cannot do. Looking back is something we must not do, because our people are not looking backwards. They are looking to us, and they are waiting. Mr. Speaker, that brings me to the question that must weigh on every member of this House. What will Fiji look like at the dawn of one of the world's most existential time or period? Because make no mistake, we are just entering that era. We are not observers on the sidelines. We can't. We are walking into it, eyes open or closed, prepared or not, the choice of which is ours. And so we must be brave enough to confront the challenges this new era brings, brave enough to name them clearly, and brave enough to act. The dawn of 2026 must be a time of serious reflection. Reflections on Fiji as a nation of many people, many races and many creeds, united not just by blood alone, but by shared purpose and destiny. And from that reflection, a series of serious choices must be made, not optional choices, not choices we can postpone until the crisis is upon us. Serious choices now. Choices, Mr. Speaker. That is what this moment demands. The choice to reset the direction of our country from top down, from the Constitution to our communities. The choice to re-strategize our trade capacity, to increase our export strength, to expand our partners to ASEAN, to the Middle East and beyond. Because in a fractured world, Mr. Speaker, those who trade with few answer to few, but those who trade with many answer to themselves. The choice to enter the era of commercial planting, to raise our own meat stock, to serve our own needs rather than rely on import that drain our foreign reserves and exports our dignity. This year onwards, we have one choice, Mr. Speaker. Reset, innovate, invest, plant, raise stock, or be poor as a nation. There is no other way. There is no waiting. There is only choices. We have a choice, Mr. Speaker, to revisit this nation's potential, to build new industries while we upgrade and renew our commitment to existing ones. New businesses and industries that will provide the funding needed for our infrastructure, our health, our roads, and our schools. Because amidst all the global shocks, there is always opportunity. And Fiji has something that the world craves: stability and peace. We have been mooted repeatedly, even as of last week, as the safest nation on earth in these times of global volatility. This is not a slogan, Mr. Speaker. This is a strategic asset. That is a foundation upon which we can build. So while the world is fixated between the power struggles of the East and the West, let us look within us. Here in the South, let us capitalize on our positioning, on our capability, and our greatest resource, our location and our people. The world is searching for safe harbor. Let that harbor be found here. Mr. Speaker, resetting our position means we must stop making excuses. For too long, we have told ourselves that the brain drain is natural, that it is normal for our best and the brightest to seek opportunity overseas because they cannot find it here. That is not a fact of life. That is a failure of ambition. We must create opportunity here at home, not someday, not somewhere, here in Fiji for all of our citizens. Let me be direct. There is a single employer in our construction industry today with over 600 foreign workers on its payroll. That is only one employer, and there are many others. 600, Mr. Speaker. While our own people look for work elsewhere, we bring in workers from abroad. That is not a criticism, Mr. Speaker, for those workers. It is an indictment of our own national work ethic and attitude. If we as Fijians have no desire to work, wait for government handout, if we cannot turn up to work on time and stay until the end, if we cannot turn up to work consistently for 5 to 6 days, then we can't complain when employers bring foreign workers. And that needs to stop. Put on the right attitude to work, stop the unproductive hours, stop excessive cover consumption that leads to weak productivity, work hard, have a vision, work that vision to work daily, it will come to you. Mr. Speaker, let us set aside the politics. Let us set aside the rhetoric. Let us ask a simple question. And this I imagine, Mr. Speaker. What is stopping Raki and what is stopping the province of Ra from becoming known as the pineapple or the guava capital of Fiji? Nothing. Now, allow us to just look at the maths. A single guava tree generates the same revenue in 8 months that a cover plant takes 4 years to produce. 8 months versus 4 years. That's not just an opportunity, Mr. Speaker. That's transformation. I spoke to a farmer recently. He did not give me a briefing note. He did not offer me a policy proposal. He just looked at me, he plants white guava, and he says, Philly, it's a no-brainer. And he's right. The farmer knows what the spreadsheet shows. The only question that the farmer is asking is if we in this House have the will to act on what is plainly in front of us. Mr. Speaker, it's often said that Raki has the tastiest pineapple in the country, though the good people of Sengaga might respectfully disagree. But here is the point I wish to make, Mr. Speaker. When our bakers search for ingredients to bake an upside-down pineapple, more often than not, they reach for brands imported from across the globe. Mr. Speaker, just imagine that. Imagine that today, every cane field in Ra was turned into a pineapple farm. Not a single row, every field. Imagine a pineapple processing industry rising in Ra, employing Fijians, producing for Fiji and exporting to the world. Instead of standing in these chambers arguing about why the Raki sugar mill has not been built, we could be asking a different question. Is there a new industry that we can develop and open in Ra? Let us look at the upside. Farmers could farm something new, something that earns revenue faster, something better, processed pineapple slices, processed pineapple rings, pineapple juice, products that to this very day, Mr. Speaker, we still import from abroad. We import what we could grow, we import what we could process, and we import what we could even export. That is not strategy, Mr. Speaker, that is subsidy without return. Reimagining Fiji, we must look beyond what was, beyond the comfort of old industries, old arguments, and old excuses, and fix our eyes on what should be and could be. What should be is a Ra province not known for what we failed them. Past administration, and even in this administration, on promising a new sugar factory, but for what we have the courage now to do and cause transformation. We must pursue a future of self-reliance, where our own Fijian-grown products are not only on our shelves, but are also exported to the world. Because His Excellency, Mr. Speaker, identified that many families in the rural and maritime regions still face hardship to this day. I'm pleased to note that our pineapples have recently been granted access to the New Zealand market, and we thank our New Zealand partners for their support under the Nduavata Partnership. Mr. Speaker, now with that door open, let us walk through it, and I would beg that we would capitalize on it in a very big way. Mr. Speaker, resetting as a nation is not a slogan. It's a task that must be built from the ground up. It begins in infancy and carries through adulthood. It is a journey from being looked after to taking responsibility of looking after others. The values, the drive, and above all, the motivation that defines who we are as Fijians must be taught, not just in schools, but also in our homes. That's why reforming Fiji's education law is not merely important, it is essential. We must connect the dots now, Mr. Speaker, from early childhood to primary, from secondary to tertiary, and from classroom to the job market. This continuum cannot be left to chances. It's being addressed now deliberately by the Ministry of Strategic Planning, Strategic Development, National Planning and Statistics, working under the direct oversight of the Prime Minister. His Excellency, Mr. Speaker, at the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources, we recently launched a land rental recovery program. Not a policy review, not a discussion paper, a recovery. And I'm pleased to advise the House this afternoon that in just 7 months, the Ministry has recovered $13.6 million. $13.6 million. That's not simply money recovered. That is also room created. Rooms for our Treasury to deliver public service where they are needed most. Room for the Ministry of Finance to prioritize what matters. Health, education, infrastructure, every dollar recovered through this exercise is a dollar that can now serve the Fijian people. In the third week of January of 2026, I delivered my ministerial statement intent for the year to more than 80 senior management staff of my ministry, gathered from across 10 offices across Fiji, not in a lengthy document, not in a distant memo, but we stayed in a room for one entire day. And we declared together in 2026 would be a year of heightened urgency, not business as usual, not incremental progress, but heightened urgency. We agreed that this year would start fast, continue fast, and end fast. That requires energy, it requires commitment, it requires drive, and it requires purpose. And I am prepared to lead it. And to the public, you don't have to speak to the Honorable Ketan Lal to talk to me via his Facebook post. I'm available to talk to you. And my staff are also prepared to talk to you. I expect my ministry staff to be more vigilant in responding to stakeholders' agreement. Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me report on progress before I resume my seat. The review of the State Lands Act 1945 is complete. The review of the Land Use Act of 2010 is complete. Both have been finished. Both are now with the Fiji Law Reform Commission, who are preparing the final report for Cabinet and alongside the draft bill. I thank Lady Racheli Tuivanga and her team at Law Reform for their diligent work. When laws sit unchanged for decades, Mr. Speaker, they do not age, they calcify. And calcified laws cannot serve a dynamic nation. We are not stopping there, Mr. Speaker. This week, on Monday, the 9th of March 2026, we launched the review of the Mining Act of 1965 and the Quarries Act. Let me repeat that year, 1965 and 1939. These are not just old laws. They are artifacts of a different Fiji, a different century, a different world. By now, the consultation team have visited Nausamu, Nasinu, Nosori, and today, as scheduled, they will be in Namosi. I urge every Fijian with an interest, every landowner, every miner, every community member, and every citizen, let your voice be heard in these platforms. These consultations are not just merely formality, they are foundation. And the foundation laid without listening is a foundation that will crack. The world is changing fast, our laws must change with it. And we, in this coalition government, are getting it done. Mr. Speaker, I join the Prime Minister in thanking His Excellency the President for his most gracious speech. God bless Fiji.